Close your eyes for a moment and feel your heart beating. That's exactly how mine was pounding that evening. The crystal chandelier at Boston's most exclusive restaurant, La Maison d'Or, cast elegant shadows across the white tablecloth as I watched Scarlett Morrison's perfectly manicured fingers wrap around her third glass of Chateau Margaux. She had no idea who I really was. Not yet. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist caught the light, and I felt my stomach turn. It was identical to the one I'd found receipts for in Wesley's study, dated exactly 1 month before our 15th wedding anniversary. My name is Autumn Hayes, and until 6 weeks ago, I was living what everyone considered the perfect life. At 38, I had everything society told me I should want. Executive position at Goldman Sachs, a historic brownstone in Beacon Hill worth $4.2 million, and a marriage to Boston's most celebrated neurosurgeon, Dr. Wesley Hayes. Our life looked immaculate. From the outside, charity galas, summer weekends in the Hamptons, winter ski trips to Aspen. We were that couple everyone envied, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out. The wine is exquisite, isn't it? I asked, watching her take another nervous sip. She thought she was meeting a potential client for her interior design business, a wealthy divorcee looking to renovate a penthouse in Back Bay. If only she knew she was sitting across from her lover's wife. The signs had been there for months, perhaps even years, but I'd chosen to ignore them. The late-night surgeries that never appeared on the hospital schedule, the new cologne he only wore to medical conferences, the mysterious charges at hotels just outside the city. But it was the little things that finally broke through my carefully constructed denial. The way he stopped looking me in the eyes during conversations, how he began taking calls in the garden, the subtle change in how he kissed me goodbye. In the mornings, everything shattered 3 weeks ago, during our anniversary dinner at this very restaurant. Wesley was distracted, constantly checking his phone under the table. When I excused myself to the ladies' room, I caught a glimpse of his screen. A text message that read, "Can't wait to hold you again tomorrow, my love. S." In that moment, standing in my $12,000 Oscar de la Renta gown, I felt my world implode. But I'm not the kind of woman who breaks down in public restrooms. No, I'm the type who plans, who calculates, who waits for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, I began my investigation. What I uncovered in the following weeks would shock even the most seasoned private investigators. "Tell me more about your design aesthetic," I prompted Scarlett, watching her eyes light up as she launched into a rehearsed speech about modern minimalism and organic elements. She was beautiful, I had to admit, younger than me, with that effortless grace that comes from never having to worry about money. The kind of woman who could make a man forget his vows, his morals, his entire life. Little did she know that in my Hermes Birkin bag lay evidence of their 3-year affair. Every hotel receipt, every secret message, every little lie carefully documented and organized. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. What I'd discovered went far beyond simple infidelity. It was a web of deceit so intricate, so carefully constructed, that it would make national headlines when it all came crashing down. "You have such an interesting perspective on life," I said, letting my words hang in the air. The slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her wine glass told me she was starting to sense something wasn't quite right. The evening was young, and I had so much more planned. As the waiter approached with our appetizers, I caught my reflection in the window. Poised, elegant, dangerous. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same person who had discovered her husband's betrayal 3 weeks ago. No, she was someone much more powerful. Someone who had transformed pain into purpose. "Shall we order another bottle?" I suggested, my voice honey-sweet with hidden venom. "We have so much to discuss, and the night is just beginning. Take a deep breath, because what I'm about to reveal will make your heart race, and your mind." The gentle clink of fine china punctuated the air as our appetizers arrived. Seared foie gras for me, oysters Rockefeller for Scarlett. I watched her delicately pick up her fork, her Cartier bracelet catching the soft candlelight. That very bracelet was the first thread I'd pulled, unraveling the tapestry of lies Wesley had woven around us all. "You know," I began, swirling the Chateau Margaux in my glass, "I've always believed that spaces tell stories. The homes we create, the environments we cultivate, they're reflections of our inner worlds, aren't they? Scarlett nodded eagerly, still under the illusion that this was a potential client meeting. If only she knew the story her own choices had written. My mind drifted back to the day everything changed, just 3 weeks ago. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, and I was searching for an umbrella in Wesley's study when I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers. As I gathered them, a receipt fluttered to the floor. $12,000 for a Cartier bracelet, dated 2 days before our anniversary. A gift he'd never given me. That single piece of paper was the key that unlocked Pandora's box. Over the next few weeks, I became a shadow detective in my own home. I hired the best private investigator in Boston, called in favors from old college friends in the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, and used every skill I'd honed in my years as a ruthless Wall Street executive to uncover the truth. "Tell me about your most challenging project," I prodded Scarlett, watching her eyes light up as she launched into a story about renovating a historic Cape Cod mansion. Little did she know, I was intimately familiar with that very property. It was one of the many assets Wesley had hidden from me, purchased through a shell company 3 years ago, just when their affair began. As Scarlett spoke, my mind raced through the evidence I'd uncovered. Bank statements revealing transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars to offshore accounts. Email threads discussing property investments in the Cayman Islands. Burner phones with messages that made my stomach churn. But it was the video footage that truly shattered my world. The private investigator had placed cameras in locations I'd never imagined. The beach house in the Hamptons where Wesley claimed to attend medical conferences, the high-rise apartment in Back Bay, registered to a non-existent medical research foundation, even the private jet he'd bought shares in without my knowledge. The footage showed not just Scarlett, but 2 other women, Melissa Blackwood, a pharmaceutical rep, and Rebecca Chen, a young neurosurgery resident at Wesley's hospital. "You mentioned you enjoy modern art," I said, smoothly steering the conversation. "There's a fascinating exhibition at the MFA right now, a series on duality and hidden truths. Have you seen it?" Scarlett shook her head, and I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. She was living her own exhibition of duality, completely unaware of the other women in Wesley's life, just as I had been blind to all of them. The main course arrived, pan-seared scallops for her, beef tenderloin for me. As we ate, I continued to probe, each question a carefully laid trap. "How do you balance your professional life with personal commitments?" I asked, watching her pause mid-bite. "It can be challenging," Scarlett admitted, a flicker of guilt crossing her features. "But I believe in making time for what truly matters." If she only knew how those words echoed the lies Wesley had told me countless times. Late nights at the hospital, weekend conferences, charity events, all fabrications to cover his elaborate double life. No, triple life. Quadruple if you counted. The life he shared with me, his lawful wife. As we conversed, my mind replayed the most devastating discovery of all. It wasn't just the affairs, the hidden properties, or the financial deceit. It was the life insurance policy I'd found, taken out in my name for $10 million with a suspicious clause about extreme sports accidents. Coupled with an email thread I'd uncovered discussing our upcoming hiking trip to Vermont, the implications were chilling. My husband wasn't just cheating on me, he was planning to kill me. "You know," I said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I've always believed that trust is the foundation of any relationship, personal or professional." I watched Scarlett's face carefully as I continued. "Don't you find it fascinating how people can compartmentalize their lives? Present one face to the world while hiding so much beneath the surface?" A flicker of unease crossed Scarlett's face, quickly masked by a practiced smile. "I suppose we all have our secrets," she replied, reaching for her wine glass with a slightly trembling hand. "Indeed we do," I murmured, allowing a hint of steel to enter my voice. "But some secrets have a way of coming to light, don't they?" The air between us crackled with tension. Scarlett's eyes darted around the restaurant, as if suddenly realizing she might be out of her depth, but I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. "Tell me, Scarlett," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "Have you ever been to the Maldives? I hear it's lovely this time of year." Her face paled visibly. The Maldives, where she and Wesley had spent a secret vacation just last month, while I was in Chicago caring for my dying mother. A trip I only knew about because of the hidden camera in Wesley's office, capturing him and Scarlett poring over travel brochures, laughing about their upcoming medical conference getaway. I've never been, she stammered, the lie falling flat between us. Really? That's a shame. I have some wonderful photos I could show you. The sunsets are particularly breathtaking from the overwater bungalows at the St. Regis. I reached for my phone, watching panic flood her eyes. Who are you? Scarlett whispered, the facade of the confident interior designer crumbling before my eyes. I leaned back, allowing a small, dangerous smile to play across my lips. I'm someone who believes in justice, Scarlett, and in ensuring that people face the consequences of their actions. With deliberate slowness, I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila envelope. Before we proceed, there's something I'd like to show you. Something I think will change the course of this evening, and your life dramatically. Scarlett's hands shook as she reached for the envelope, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and dawning realization. As she began to open it, I felt a surge of adrenaline course through my veins. This was the moment I'd been planning for weeks, the culmination of sleepless nights and tearful days, of rage transformed into cold, calculating purpose. Be careful what you wish for, Scarlett, I said softly. Sometimes the truth is far more devastating than any lie. As she pulled out the contents of the envelope, I watched her face transform from confusion to shock to abject horror. Photos of her and Wesley together, bank statements showing transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars, email printouts discussing their future plans, and something else. Something that would shatter her world just as thoroughly as mine had been shattered. This can't be real, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft piano music playing in the restaurant. Oh, but it is, I replied, my voice steady and cold. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence is very, very real, and it's just the beginning. The look of utter devastation on Scarlett's face should have brought me satisfaction. Instead, I felt a strange mix of pity and resolve. She was just another pawn in Wesley's game, albeit a willing one. But what she was about to learn would test the limits of her complicity and challenge everything she thought she knew about the man she'd given her heart to. Now, I said, signaling to the waiter for another bottle of wine, let's talk about Wesley Hayes and the intricate web of lies he's woven around all of us. Because, my dear Scarlett, you're not the only one he's been lying to, and what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about your perfect lover. The waiter arrived with a fresh bottle of Chateau Margaux, pouring it with practiced elegance. As he retreated, I raised my glass, a toast to the destruction of carefully constructed illusions. To truth, I said, my eyes locked on Scarlett's, tear-filled ones, and to the sweet, bitter taste of revenge. Brace yourself for the moment when everything changes. The crystal stemware trembled in Scarlett's hand as she raised her glass, her perfectly applied makeup now streaked with silent tears. To truth, she echoed hollowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. What I'm about to tell you, Scarlett, goes far beyond a simple affair. Wesley Hayes isn't just a cheating husband, he's a master, manipulator, a fraud, and potentially a murderer. Her eyes widened in disbelief, but I pressed on, pulling out my tablet. Look at this, I said, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a complex web of shell companies, offshore accounts, and property holdings. This is Wesley's real empire. Not just the beach house you shared, but properties across 3 continents, bank accounts in Switzerland and the Caymans, and investments that would make Wall Street sharks envious. Scarlett's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. But how? Where did all this come from? That's where it gets interesting, I replied, my voice tinged with a mix of admiration and disgust. Wesley's been running a sophisticated medical fraud scheme for years. Fake surgeries, overbilling insurance companies, even selling prescription drugs on the black market. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. I pulled out another document, a life insurance policy in my name for $10, Million. He took this out 3 months ago. Notice the clause about extreme sports accidents? Scarlett nodded, her face ashen. Coincidentally, we had a hiking trip planned to Vermont next month, a trip he insisted on, despite knowing my fear of heights. The implication hung heavy in the air. Scarlett's voice shook as she spoke. You think he was planning to kill me? I finished for her. Yes, I do. But here's where it gets even more twisted. I pulled out 2 more insurance policies, one in Scarlett's name, another in a name she didn't recognize. Meet Melissa Blackwood and Rebecca Chen, the other women in Wesley's life. Scarlett's world visibly crumbled around her. Other women? I nodded grimly. You're not the only one, Scarlett. You're part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Wesley's been juggling at least 3 mistresses, each thinking she's the only one, each a pawn in his larger scheme. As if, on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, a small smile playing on my lips. Perfect timing. Scarlett, I believe it's time you met some people. The maitre d' approached our table, looking slightly flustered. Mrs. Hayes, your other guests have arrived. Shall I show them to the private dining room? I stood, gesturing for Scarlett to follow. Yes, please. We have much to discuss. As we walked to the private room, I could feel Scarlett's world spinning out of control. The opulent decor of La Maison d'Or faded into a blur as we entered the secluded space. Inside, 2 women were already seated. One, a polished blonde, in her early 40s, the other a younger Asian woman with a keen, intelligent gaze. Scarlett, I said, my voice steady, meet Melissa Blackwood and Rebecca Chen. Ladies, this is Scarlett Morrison. The room crackled with tension as recognition dawned on their faces. Each woman had thought she was Wesley's secret love, his escape from a loveless marriage. Now, faced with the truth, their expressions ranged from shock to anger to profound sadness. Before we begin, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table, I want you all to understand something. We've all been victims of Wesley's manipulation. But tonight, we have a choice. We can let this destroy us, or we can take control of the narrative. I reached into my bag, pulling out 3 identical folders. Inside these are all the evidence I've gathered: financial records, property deeds, emails, photos, and recordings. Everything needed to not just expose Wesley, but to bring down his entire operation. The women looked at the folders with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Melissa, the pharmaceutical rep, was the first to speak. Why are you showing us this? Why not just go to the police? I smiled, a predatory gleam in my eye. Because, ladies, revenge is a dish best served cold. And with impeccable timing, Wesley thinks he's untouchable, protected by his reputation and his connections. But he's made one crucial mistake. What's that? Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He underestimated us, I replied. All of us. He thought we were just pretty distractions, easy to manipulate and discard. But together, we have the power to destroy everything he's built. I stood, pacing the room as I laid out my plan. In exactly 1 hour, Wesley will walk through that door, expecting to meet Scarlett for a romantic dinner. Instead, he'll find all of us, and a team from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit waiting outside. Gasps echoed around the table. Scarlett's voice shook as she asked, You're going to have him arrested? Just like that? Oh no, I said, a dangerous smile playing on my lips. Arrest is too good for Wesley. What I have planned is far more satisfying. As I detailed the intricate plan I'd spent weeks perfecting, I watched the women's expressions change. Fear gave way to anger, then to a steely resolve. By the time I finished speaking, there was a new energy in the room, the unmistakable electricity of women scorned, united in their thirst for justice. Ladies, I said, raising my glass in a toast, to the end of Wesley Hayes, and to the beginning of our revenge. As we clinked glasses, the air thick with anticipation, I couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. The game was about to change, and Wesley had no idea what was coming for him. Feel the surge of power as the tide begins to turn. The next hour passed in a flurry of activity. As we waited for Wesley's arrival, each woman played her part in our carefully orchestrated plan. Melissa, with her pharmaceutical connections, made a series of cryptic phone calls, setting in motion an audit that would expose Wesley's prescription drug scheme. Rebecca, the young resident, trembled as she sent emails to the hospital board, revealing evidence of Wesley's falsified surgeries and insurance fraud. Scarlett, still reeling from the revelations, found her strength in action. Her fingers flew across her tablet, transferring funds from the accounts she shared with Wesley to offshore holdings I had established. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she murmured, a mix of fear and exhilaration in her voice. "You're not just doing it for yourself," I reminded her gently. "You're doing it for every person Wesley has ever deceived, every patient he's endangered with his fraud." As the clock ticked closer to Wesley's expected arrival, I gathered the women for a final briefing. "Remember," I said, my voice low and intense, "he'll try to charm his way out of this. He'll lie, he'll plead, he'll try to turn us against each other. But we know the truth now, and that's our power." A knock at the door made us all freeze. The maitre d' entered, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "Dr. Hayes has arrived, madame. Shall I show him in?" I nodded, straightening my posture and smoothing my dress. "Yes, please. And remember, no interruptions once he's here." As the door closed behind the maitre d', I turned to the others. "Places, ladies. It's showtime." We arranged ourselves around the room, Melissa and Rebecca, seated at the far end of the table, Scarlett standing by the window, and me, positioned directly across from the door. The tension was palpable, the air electric with anticipation. The door opened, and Wesley strode in, a bouquet of red roses in hand, and a charming smile on his face. That smile froze, then faltered as he took in the scene before him. "Autumn?" he said, his voice a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. "What's going on? What are you doing here?" I stood slowly, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Good evening, Wesley. We've been expecting you. Why don't you have a seat? We have so much to discuss." His eyes darted around the room, taking in Scarlett's tear-stained face, the tense postures of Melissa and Rebecca. For a moment, I saw fear flicker in his eyes before his practiced charm reasserted itself. "Darling," he said, stepping towards me with arms outstretched. "There seems to be some misunderstanding. Why don't we talk privately, and I can explain everything?" I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Oh, I think we're well past private conversations and explanations, Wesley. You see, we all know everything now. Every lie, every scheme, every betrayal." The color drained from his face as the full impact of my words hit him. His eyes darted to each woman in turn, desperately seeking an ally and finding none. "Ladies," I said, addressing Melissa, Rebecca, and Scarlett, "would you like to share with Wesley what you've been up to this past hour?" One by one, they spoke, their voices growing stronger with each revelation. Melissa detailed the pharmaceutical audit now underway. Rebecca explained the emails sent to the hospital board. Scarlett described the financial transfers that had left Wesley's secret accounts empty. As they spoke, I watched Wesley's facade crumble. The charming, confident surgeon was gone, replaced by a man realizing his carefully constructed world was collapsing around him. "You can't do this," he sputtered, his charm giving way to desperation. "Do you have any idea who I am? The connections I have? I'll destroy all of you." I laughed, the sound cold and mirthless. "Oh, Wesley, you still don't get it, do you? You've already destroyed yourself. We're just making sure you face the consequences." I pulled out my phone, dialing a number. "Agent Johnson, we're ready for you now." The door opened, and 2 FBI agents entered, their faces grim. "Dr. Wesley Hayes," one said, stepping forward, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder." As the agents read him his rights, Wesley's eyes locked with mine. In them, I saw a swirling mix of emotions, rage, fear, and finally, a grudging respect. "How?" he whispered as the handcuffs clicked into place. How did you figure it all out? I stepped close, my voice low enough for only him to hear. You taught me well, darling. All those years watching you manipulate and scheme, I was learning. And unlike you, I found allies, not just pawns. As the agents led Wesley away, I turned to the three women who had become my unexpected partners in this scheme. They stood, tall, their faces a mixture of relief, vindication, and dawning empowerment. Ladies, I said, raising my glass in a toast, to new beginnings, and to the power of women united. As we clinked glasses, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Wesley's arrest was just the beginning. We had an empire to dismantle, truths to reveal, and most importantly, lives to rebuild. Now, I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. Who's ready for dessert? I hear the chocolate souffle here is to die for. Laughter, tentative at first but growing stronger, filled the room. It was the sound of healing beginning, of strength found in unexpected places, and of a future suddenly full of possibilities. Prepare yourself for the moment when justice and vengeance collide. The chocolate souffle arrived, a decadent symbol of our newfound freedom. As we savored each bite, the gravity of what we'd just accomplished began to sink in. The adrenaline that had carried us through the confrontation with Wesley was fading, replaced by a cocktail of emotions: relief, exhaustion, and a touch of fear for what lay ahead. What happens now? Scarlett asked, her voice small but steady. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I set down my spoon, meeting each woman's gaze in turn. Now, ladies, we finish what we started. Wesley's arrest is just the beginning. We have an empire to dismantle, lives to rebuild, and a story to tell, on our terms. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with incoming messages. I glanced at the screen, a grim smile playing on my lips. It's starting. The news of Wesley's arrest is breaking. By morning, it'll be everywhere. Rebecca's eyes widened. The hospital. My career. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand reassuringly. You did the right thing, Rebecca. The board knows you came forward voluntarily. Your career isn't over. It's just beginning, on honest terms this time. Melissa, ever. The strategist leaned forward. We need to get ahead of this story. Control the narrative before Wesley's lawyers start spinning their own version. I nodded, pulling out a sleek laptop from my bag. Already on it. I have a friend at the Boston Globe. She's waiting for our statement, our collective statement. This is our chance to tell the truth, all of it, in our own words. For the next hour, we crafted our story together. Each woman contributed, sharing details of Wesley's manipulation, the extent of his fraud, and the devastating personal toll of his actions. As we worked, I watched a transformation take place. The fear and uncertainty in their eyes gave way to determination and strength. Just as we were putting the finishing touches on our statement, a commotion outside the private dining room caught our attention. Raised voices, the sound of running feet, and then a loud bang as the door flew open. Wesley stood in the doorway, his handcuffs gone, his suit disheveled, and his eyes wild with a dangerous mix of desperation and rage. Behind him, I could see the crumpled form of a security guard on the floor. You think you can destroy me? He snarled, his charm and poise completely evaporated. I built this life. I control it. And I'll be damned if I let a bunch of women take it away from me. He lunged forward, but I was ready. Years of kickboxing classes, my secret outlet for the frustration of living with Wesley, paid off in an instant. I sidestepped his charge, using his momentum to send him crashing into the table. Chaos erupted. Scarlett screamed. Melissa grabbed a heavy candlestick as a weapon, and Rebecca rushed to the fallen security guard. Wesley scrambled to his feet, his eyes darting around for an escape route. It's over, Wesley, I said, my voice calm despite the pounding of my heart. You have nowhere to go, no one left to manipulate. It's time to face the truth. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Truth? You want truth? How about the truth that you're nothing without me, Autumn? All of you. You're just side characters in my story. No, Wesley, Scarlett said, stepping forward, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. We're not in your story anymore. We're writing our own. As if her words had broken a spell, the other women moved to stand beside me. United, we formed a barrier between Wesley and the door. In that moment, looking at the four of us standing tall, something in Wesley's eyes changed. The fight drained out of him, replaced by the dawning realization that he had truly lost. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Wesley's shoulders slumped in defeat. How did it come to this? He murmured, more to himself than to us. I stepped forward, close enough to see the flecks of gray in his once beloved eyes. It came to this because you forgot the most important rule, Wesley. Every action has consequences. And now, it's time to face yours. The FBI agents burst into the room, quickly restraining Wesley. As they led him away, he looked back one last time. In his eyes, I saw a glimmer of the man I had once loved, the brilliant surgeon who had swept me off my feet all those years ago. But that man was gone, consumed by greed and hubris. As the doctor closed behind him, a heavy silence fell over the room. We stood there, four women brought together by betrayal, now bound by something stronger, a shared journey of survival and transformation. Melissa was the first to break the silence. Well, she said, a hint of her trademark humor returning, I don't know about you ladies, but I could use a drink. Laughter, slightly hysterical but genuine, bubbled up from all of us. The tension of the night finally broke, washing away in waves of relief and budding camaraderie. I raised my glass, meeting the eyes of each woman in turn. To us, I said softly, to survival, to justice, and to new beginnings. As our glasses clinked together, I felt a shift in the air. The worst was over, but our journey was far from finished. We had a story to tell, a legacy to reclaim, and a future to build, together. Take a deep breath as we navigate the aftermath and forge a new path. The days following Wesley's arrest and final confrontation were a whirlwind of activity. Our story broke in the Boston Globe, sending shockwaves through the medical community and Boston's elite social circles. As predicted, Wesley's high-powered lawyers attempted to spin the narrative, but our united front and meticulous documentation left little room for doubt. 1 week after that fateful night at La Maison d'Or, we gathered again, this time in my Beacon Hill home. The atmosphere was different, no longer charged with fear and desperation, but with a cautious hope and budding solidarity. I still can't believe it's over, Scarlett said, curled up in an armchair, a steaming mug of tea in her hands. The shadows under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights, but there was a newfound strength in her posture. Melissa, ever practical, was poring over financial documents spread across the coffee table. It's not over yet, she said, looking up. We've still got a long road ahead. The feds are freezing assets left and right, and untangling this financial web won't be easy. I nodded, taking a seat on the sofa. That's why I've called in some favors. I've got a team of forensic accountants working round the clock. Every penny Wesley stole, every asset he hid. We're going to find it all. Rebecca, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The hospital board called me in yesterday, she said, her voice trembling slightly. They offered me a position on the ethics committee, said they needed someone with first-hand experience of how things can go wrong. A chorus of congratulations filled the room. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Proof that there could be life and even growth after the scandal. Ladies, I said, calling their attention, we've been through hell together, and we've come out the other side. But now we have a choice to make. We can go our separate ways, try to rebuild our lives individually, or, Scarlett prompted, leaning forward. I took a deep breath. Or we can use what we've learned, what we've been through, to help others, to make sure no one else falls victim to someone like Wesley. The room fell silent as the weight of my words sank in. It was Melissa who spoke first, a slow smile spreading across her face. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting, Autumn? I nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. I am. We have the skills, the experience, and now, thanks to our settlement with Wesley's estate, the resources. We could start a foundation dedicated to exposing medical fraud, supporting victims of financial abuse, empowering women to recognize and escape manipulative relationships. The energy in the room shifted palpably. Rebecca sat up straighter, her eyes shining with possibility. Scarlett uncurled from her chair, moving to sit closer to the group. It won't be easy, I cautioned. We'll face resistance, skepticism, maybe even threats from people who prefer these issues to stay hidden. But together, I think we could make a real difference. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Scarlett reached out, placing her hand in the center of the coffee table. "I'm in," she said simply. Melissa's hand joined hers. "Count me in. Someone's got to keep the book straight after all." Rebecca hesitated only a moment before adding, her hand to the pile. "For every patient who's ever been lied to, every woman who's felt powerless, I'm in." I placed my hand on top, feeling the warmth and strength of our connection. Then it settled. Ladies, welcome to the Phoenix Foundation, rising from the ashes of betrayal to build something beautiful. As we sat there, hands joined, I felt a sense of peace wash over me for the first time in months. The road ahead would be challenging, no doubt, but we'd face it together. 4 women, once victims, now architects of their own destiny. "You know," Melissa said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "we should send Wesley a thank you note in prison. After all, if it weren't for him, we'd never have found each other." Laughter, genuine and healing, filled the room. It was the sound of new beginnings, of wounds starting to heal, of a future full of purpose and possibility. As the afternoon wore on, we began to plan in earnest. Ideas flowed freely: support groups, educational programs, partnerships with law enforcement and medical boards. With each suggestion, our vision for the Phoenix Foundation took shape, growing from a spark of an idea into a beacon of hope. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows, I looked at the women around me, no longer strangers united by betrayal, but friends and partners in a shared mission. We had taken the pain inflicted by one man's greed and transformed it into a force for good. "To the Phoenix Foundation," I said, raising my glass in a final toast, "and to the strength we found in each other." As our glasses clinked together, I felt a sense of certainty settle over me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had survived the fire of betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser, and united. Our story wasn't ending. It was just beginning.